Welcome back to episode 2 of Talk with the Interns. My name is Mia Salbego. I'm a student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
And my name's Riley. I'm a student at the University of Notre Dame.
Last episode, we talked a little bit about exploring colleges and exploring majors in the U.S. And today we're going to be talking about the inside of a university classroom in the United States. So professors, teaching assistants, discussions, lectures, all that kind of stuff.
And just a reminder to keep filling out the Q&A segment that is posted on our Instagram so we can keep answering all of your questions. So the first thing we're going to be talking about today is the classroom environment. So what to expect in a U.S. university classroom. So one of the biggest things you should expect in a classroom, I would say, is participation. Yeah. So it's not just about getting good grades and getting 100% on your test scores, but being able to be engaged with the professor and your fellow students. So it is always part of your grade in, I would say, most of your classes. Yeah. And you can be graded on like how much you speak in your class.
I would say especially like in a lot of my Spanish classes, like honestly a big percentage of my grade is like how much I am talking with other students. I'd say like probably you note it with like your Arabic classes as well. Like you're not going to really learn a language unless like you're using it a lot. So I think that is sort of the whole premise of like a lot of those classes where it's just like very discussion based. And yeah, you're graded on how much you talk to others and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure. So also the class size can definitely vary a lot. So there are, depending on whether you go to like a bigger university or a smaller university, typically you'll have like class sizes of 100 plus if you're in like a big lecture hall, as opposed to like more like smaller discussion based classes are going to be like 10 to 20 people, I would say. Yeah. So maybe you could talk about like maybe like a big lecture hall you've had or like a small discussion.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of like the classes that I had like freshman year that were like prerequisites for like math and science classes, those lectures were always like really, really big. Yeah. So I remember sitting in a lecture hall with like honestly probably like 200 other students and it was like very overwhelming. But then those classes that do have those big lectures always have like small discussions to be able to like talk with TAs, which are like teaching assistants that help out students, and just like work with other students on different things.
Yeah, I would also like definitely say like the size of your classes depend on like the major that you're studying. Yeah. So like I know my Arabic major has like 2 people from like my 2027 class that are majoring in Arabic. So those classes are like, you know, like 5 to 7 people or whatever it is, as opposed to like 20% of Notre Dame studies finance. Yeah. So, you know, you have 2,000 kids at the university studying finance. So you're of course going to have like a bigger lecture hall.
Yeah, it definitely varies based on a variety of factors, I'd say.
I agree.
All right, next we're going to talk a little bit about what office hours is and sort of just like finding ways to ask for help on campus. So basically office hours are times that professors will set aside to be able to like meet with students and help them out. Usually the teaching assistant is there and they're also able to help students out during office hours. So I would say like in my experience, like in tougher like science or math classes that I had like my freshman year of college, I went to office hours a few times when I was just like unclear about like a certain concept, especially it's like really especially helpful right before like an exam if you want to like clear up information. But it's definitely like something where you don't need to like wait until like right before an exam or wait until like you're deeply in despair over like some concept that you don't understand. It's also nice to just like go and be able to like chat with the professor and sort of like build a connection.
For sure. I'd say like you were just saying, building that connection with the professor is a really good advantage to office hours as a whole. So I have like a couple friends who actually I had a friend this past summer. She got really close with her bio professor and she was like constantly going to office hours and they just had a really good relationship. And she lived abroad and whatever, but she ended up getting an internship this whole summer through her professor, and just because she had like reached out, and you know what I mean. So I'd say definitely like even outside of office hours, building that relationship with your professor is a great way to build those connections as well.
I also feel like if you are showing up to office hours and like showing a professor that like you're dedicated to the class, like even I think that's like super important, because then I know a lot of people where then like their grade is like bumped up at the end of the semester.
You're, like, on, like, the
yeah, if you're like
line.
between like an A or a B, or like an A and an AB.
Yes.
And then like the professor knows that like you've tried really hard and gone to office hours, then they'll like bump you up to the next grade, which is like.
And like you don't have to wait till like you have a bunch of questions
No,
like to go to
exactly.
office hours too, which is really nice. Like even if you just have one question on your homework, you can go ask the TA or the professor, which is just like a really, really helpful way.
I feel like it's like important to emphasize like here and now, especially for like international students, that it's also sort of like a norm in the US that like you have to advocate for yourself in classes. Like it's not like maybe how it was in high school where like teachers would come to you and like see if you needed help. It's very much like there's less of a connection between you and your professors, like unless you establish it by like advocating for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So like talking to your professor, to your TA, your teaching assistant, and also we have things at most universities called tutoring centers. So these are also run by fellow students who probably did really well in the class as well. And they're just gonna, I think you said UW had like 15 different tutor
sections for different majors.
So yeah, my friend works in like the math tutoring center and she loves it. But it's just another way to get help.
It's like super normal too. Yeah. It's not like stigmatized to like go to the tutoring center. I feel like a lot of people go.
And just normal to ask for help in general too.
Yeah.
So the next thing we're going to be talking about is academic integrity and the honor code at university. So every university kind of has like their own honor code, I would say, but basically they all say the same thing, that cheating, plagiarism, copying, turning in anything that isn't your own work is not tolerated. So different universities have different ways of handling different situations, of course, but you have to do your own work and cite your sources.
Yeah, I would say to like sort of explain what honor code is, it's like basically what you explained. It's like no plagiarism, no like using artificial intelligence to do your assignments. It's sort of like implemented through you, like for one, just going to the university. I think like upon admission, like you have to pledge that you'll follow honor code, but then as like you turn in assignments for different classes, I know for a lot of final exams you have to like sign something before an exam, or even now like every time on Canvas you turn in an assignment, you have to like click the I didn't plagiarize.
Class, I think in my fall semester, and it was like every single exam that we took, we had to sign like the honor code. And I think that's just like becoming a more normal thing. Just with like, again, like you just have to cite your sources. So anything that you use, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's an academic article, you have to cite your sources. So, and then another thing is the consequences that do come from unfortunately cheating or plagiarizing or whatever it is. They can be like pretty extreme. They have like a no tolerance policy at most universities. So at least at Notre Dame, our policy is, just for an example, the first time offense is a grade penalty. So you can fail the class, fail the assignment, whatever it may be. And you can also get like an honor code violation report. Again, just depends on your university. But here at Notre Dame, if you have repeated violations or you're continuing and you've done it a couple times, you're probably either going to get suspended or unfortunately dismissed from the university. So I do know someone who was kicked out of the University of Notre Dame for cheating.
As you said, like definitely no tolerance. At UW, I feel like every time like it's even discussed, it's very much just like you will be expelled from the school.
And even like simple things count as cheating, like plagiarism, like we were saying, like unauthorized collaboration. Like you can work in groups if you're told to work in groups, but unless like otherwise instructed, you have to do everything on your own. So there are just so many ways that you can unfortunately like get caught in that, but just staying away and making sure you're doing your own work is definitely the biggest advice that I have.
All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about like group projects in something called like flipped classrooms. So sort of just like a little bit more of a peek into what classroom life actually looks like. So as we mentioned, like we talked a little bit about when group work is permitted and when group work is not permitted. I would say honestly for like a lot of the classes I'm in within the Spanish and journalism majors, we do like a lot of group projects. So like we do a lot of presentations in groups in Spanish classes, a lot of like collaborations and like things like pitches and different things within the journalism major. And I really like doing group projects because like it's definitely like a learning curve sometimes. Like if you're not working with people who like you would normally work with on something. It can be tricky. So it kind of depends,
So like it kind of depends on your major, like how many like group projects and stuff that you have. So like I know like for my Arabic class, like you said, definitely like learning a language, you're presenting like all of the time, and working in group projects all of the time. But as opposed to like maybe like your more like science and math classes, like group projects aren't like as much of a thing.
I would say like I feel like a lot of professors like try and implement at least like one thing within like a group.
At least like discussion and like stuff like that. No, absolutely. So we also have something in the US called flipped classrooms. So at least in high school in the US, most of the time, the first time you see material or any kind of information for the class will be in the classroom by the teacher. So this is different in college because you are expected to read or watch or do something before the class to have seen the information before. So a lot of time in my classes, I'll have to read a couple pages and then the professor will talk about what I read about in the following class. So I have like a basic understanding before I actually get to the class.
Do you feel like it's like that for both of your majors or like more so for one?
I would say definitely for like my finance major, you're definitely expected to like read stuff before and all of that. Arabic, I would say is like you do homework more based on what you learn in class. I think that's a little bit more like high school, at least at Notre Dame. How about you?
I would say like, honestly for my journalism major, like we don't do that much outside of class. Like sometimes there are like supplemental articles that will like introduce the theme for like the whole unit that we'll sort of like read outside of class and then talk about in class. So in that sense, and then definitely for my Spanish major, like we're always having stuff to read outside of class. And honestly, like if you don't do the reading outside of class, like it's very hard to contextualize like the content that you then learn in class.
But I would say like group projects overall are definitely really helpful and like I feel like I collaborate so much better. Like you understand this and I understand this, so now we can merge together and do it together. So group projects as a whole are definitely like a big part of the US University classroom. So we're finally at our Q&A segment. So the questions that you guys submitted to us on Instagram, we're going to keep answering. So the first question we got was what the difference.
Okay, so TA, as I think I mentioned earlier, stands for teaching assistant. So it's usually somebody who's like also in the lecture hall with the professor, which maybe I should start by explaining professors. The professor is like somebody who basically creates the entire course. So they're creating all of the content, they're lecturing about the content in class, and they're usually somebody typically with like a PhD or like some like high master, some high achievement within like the major that they're teaching. And then the TA basically just like assists them throughout the course. Sometimes they'll lead like the discussion sections if the course has a discussion section, and really just be like more of like a direct resource.
Definitely like are way more like accessible than the professor, and they're in a lot of my like office hours as well. Kind of just like again facilitating. So the professor doesn't have to do as much because he has a million lecture halls.
I would say, especially like for some of the bigger lectures that I've had, like some of my lectures have had like 6 to 10 different TAs, and then like the smaller classes sometimes will only have like 1, 2, 3 TAs depending on class size. The next question we got was how much homework do we have for our classes?
So I would say it definitely also depends on your class. That looks like for my Arabic major, I don't do as much work, I would say, outside of the classroom, because it's more of like that speaking like interaction that's going to help you like learn the language, as opposed to like my finance classes and coding classes where I definitely have a lot of work outside of class. But I think it's really, really dependent just on the class in general.
Absolutely. I think like especially too with that concept of like flipped classrooms that we talked about, like if you're taking into the account like the preparation that you're doing for class that isn't technically like homework because you're not like turning anything in. If you account for that, it definitely like can add up a lot more, where like the stuff that you're doing outside of class can like take up a lot of time.
But different classes have like different credit hours, so like maybe like a 1 credit course, which is like obviously the lowest it can go, like probably won't have very much like homework outside of class, whereas like a 4 credit class is gonna be like, okay, I'm doing like a lot of work outside of the classroom. So the last question is if we have to give a lot of presentations.
I would say we sort of talked about this earlier. Like I know for my Spanish classes, I definitely have to give a lot of presentations. So I would say like, it depends on how many Spanish classes I'm taking in a semester, but last semester I took like 3 Spanish classes, and usually I have to give like 2 or 3 presentations over the course of a semester. So they definitely added up. I was presenting a lot, but definitely like major dependent. For my journalism classes, I'm usually presenting like once at the end of the semester. But I know like some of my friends who are like tech majors or like STEM majors, like really don't have to do many.
I would say like STEM majors never, I don't want to say never.
Sometimes for like research presentations, like if they're presenting research.
Like the semester, like stuff like that. I'd say I have like 4 to 5 like presentations a semester. So, but like basically what you said, kind of just depends. But I think that's all we have for today. So I hope you guys got a little bit of a glimpse into what it's like inside a U.S. classroom. We hope you feel a little more prepared for what to expect at an American university.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest takeaway maybe that people would get from this episode is like how important participation is in the U.S. universities. Discussion is very important. You get graded for your participation, which I know is different from here in Chilean universities.
And don't forget to keep submitting questions on the Instagram so we can keep tailoring to your guys' needs.
I think that's all that we have for today.
And next episode, we're going to be talking about the dorm life and housing at U.S. universities. So what is it like to live on campus, to have a random roommate, to have a roommate that you choose, and experience the American college culture outside of the classroom.
See you next time.
Bye.